Count us down.
3, 2, 1, go.
What's up, everyone? What's up, everyone? Thank you guys for coming back to the Turning Journey channel. Today we have I feel like this is a topic a lot of people don't touch on, so I'm excited for today's video. But before we start, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're sharing everything about healthy and holy marriages, cultivating just a good relationship with your spouse, and just how it's the image of Christ.
What are you looking at, boy?
I'm looking at you.
Oh, you're a man, so I'll just say that.
Yeah. No, but how we can just be an example of Christ and His church in the earth. It's the most beautiful thing. It's what we have a passion and an anointing for. So make sure you subscribe if you are interested in that type of content. And so today we are diving into the topic of familiarity, which I feel like is, like I said, not something that's shared about a lot. And so I'm really excited to talk about it because I feel like this can feel like one of those things that's really subtly creeps into really not only marriage, but really any relationship that you have, whether it be with family or even friends that you have, or co-workers, or again, of course, your spouse, which is what we're going to talk about today. So it's a really, really important topic that I don't think we should gloss over. And so we're going to get started right away. So I know some of you might be watching and thinking, okay, well, what in the world is familiarity? So just from a quick Google search, the definition of familiarity is paraphrased here. It is knowing someone closely, or it is also relaxed friendliness or intimacy. All right. And I don't think that gives us the full context that we're looking for, but it gives us a pretty good starting point. So really, at least what I believe familiarity is, it is getting to know someone. Obviously we wouldn't say that we're familiar with a stranger. We would say that we're familiar with people that we've known for a while. And again, that's why I use those examples of family. And, it gets to the point with your spouse. You may feel familiar with your spouse. And so we're going to dive into that. But first question to you is, what would be your definition of familiarity in the context that we are talking about today with marriage and with relationships?
Marriage and relationships, I would say that when you know somebody so well to the point where you feel like you have nothing left to learn about them, or to the point where you feel like you've already learned everything you needed to know about them and you're uninterested or bored with who they are. And familiarity isn't always something that's bad, but it can turn bad if you allow yourself to see that person as just somebody that you know in and out, and you know what they love, you know what they don't like, you know what they hate. But at the same time, just because you know about somebody, it doesn't mean you know them. And sometimes we can become so familiar with the person in front of us that we don't want any spontaneity, and we just, so the same thing with the Lord. Like, He says, sing to me a new song, but sometimes we can become in such a religious box that we sing everything that's on the paper, or everything that's on the screen. Wow. And how would my husband feel if I came to him and sang him the same song every single day for the rest of our life? It doesn't mean he wouldn't love it and he wouldn't love the song. It's just sometimes it's good to have spontaneity, and even in
something
your
new,
sex life.
Something real.
Yeah, even in your sex life, what if it was planned out every single time? To me, that would get kind of awkward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really, really, really awesome illustration. And I think that it takes me back to that kind of second definition of familiarity that says relaxed friendliness or intimacy. Relaxed. And, a point that I put under that is like, the closer we get to each other, the more we see each other's flaws. So rather than continuously pursuing our spouse, we become complacent because we don't think there's anything left to discover in them. So, and I put that down and I pointed that out as you said that, because as you're talking about like intimacy, even with God, and there being no spontaneity because we've even become familiar with God's presence. If we're doing that with God's presence, how much more are we doing that with the person that we've vowed to, live with forever in the earth?
And why do you think that Jesus said a prophet isn't welcome in his own hometown, it's not because he's not loved by his family. It's because his family has known him so much to the point where they don't see anything new or different that God is doing in that person, because they see them for their human flesh. They know them by the flesh.
Yeah,
that's why we're supposed to know each other by the Spirit.
Yeah, and they know that person based on their past experience with them. You know, they know them from years ago. They know the things they did as a kid. They know their mess ups. They know their failures. And so that's a really, really, really great point. Right here, I also have, this little bullet point that says, remember where you came from. I think this is a super, super important key to not becoming, or if you have become familiar with your spouse, breaking yourself out of that. And what I mean by this is, I'll give an example. The other day we were in the car, actually with our sister, and we were sharing the story of how we got together and like how God brought us together, and just the entire story. And
we'll link that video.
We did make a video about that, so we'll link that video. You can go watch that video as well. But we were sharing this story, and as we were sharing this story, it started making me like feel all the things I was feeling at the beginning of our relationship again. And I was thinking about the first time I saw Clarissa again, and I was thinking about the first time hearing her voice over my phone, and we had a long distance relationship. So I just remembered, like, man, like how much did myself then want what I have now, to be able to sleep in the same bed with her and see her every day and communicate with her and be face to face.
And so love.
Yes.
I had to say that.
Yeah, that's a given right there. but so I think that made me forget what I was talking about. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So what I wanted to say was familiarity. It's dangerous because if we don't continuously keep those things in the front of our mind and continuously pursue a healthy relationship with our spouse that doesn't become familiar, it can make us even ungrateful. Like, as I was sharing with that story, if I thought about where I was then, being so far away from her, and now I have her every single day, there's probably parts of me that have become familiar with that and taken that for granted. That old saying of like, you don't know you have till it's gone type of thing. And so I think familiarity is kind of dangerous because I like this script, or this song right here. It's called Sales by Pat Barrett and Stephanie Gretzinger and Amanda Cook. And the lyrics say, falling is easy, staying in love is hard to be honest and keep our hearts open and be who we truly are, without the excuse, without the facade. There's no pretending. Here in your love, O Lord, set me free. And I like that. Those lyrics of that song in terms of what we're talking about tonight with familiarity, because you get to a point in your relationship where it was easy to fall in love at the beginning of your relationship. Everything was new, everything was fresh. You had your own life over here, they had their life over here, and there wasn't even if there were minor conflicts and stuff like that, nothing was huge, right? Well, then you come into the context of having a spouse and living together and facing the challenges of life together. And love becomes a choice. And
you can become burnt out in love.
Yeah. And becomes a choice. And that choice is, okay, I'm not going to become familiar with this person that God gave me, where at the beginning of my relationship with them, He was unveiling to me all these incredible things about them and showing me the greatness that He put inside of them, the purity He put in their heart. I don't want to go cold to that because I've known them for this long now and I see them every day. Right? Like we were talking about with growing up with siblings and things like that. It's really easy to become familiar, and it's something that can really destroy the growth in our relationship. Mm-hmm. It can make us really stale and stagnant and kind of come to a standstill where there's no growth.
It can make us begin to treat each other as average or treat each other as common and becoming common with each other. And one of the things that Pastor Mike Signorelli's wife has said is we treat our spouse like a couch. Like when you first get your new couch, you don't want any stains on it. You don't eat on the couch. But then you begin wiping your barbecue fingers all over the couch is I think what she said.
She says, maybe we can put the video up for you guys, but she basically says, like, you get to a point 5 years later down the road where you're eating your chicken fingers on the couch and you're rubbing all your barbecue sauce on the side of the couch where you put your pillow, which obviously I don't think people really actually do, but she's using it as an illustration.
I did it when I was younger.
Well, when you were
younger. I
don't
know about now. If I did, I wouldn't tell her.
Familiarity in marriage, you start treating your spouse as familiar as you treat your couch. When you first got that couch, what did you tell your kids? Don't you eat on that couch. Fast forward 5 years, you are wiping the barbecue sauce off on the side of the couch where you put the pillow. It's like we get into those seasons of familiarity, and all of a sudden, the newness of our love, it got to a point in our marriage where I would pray, I hope he never comes home. Because I didn't want to deal with the reality of what our life was like. I didn't want to face it. And we really had to go back to that newness. Yeah. And that's intentional. That's not a feeling. So even to this day, I'll buy things that have like a little M on them. And it's like, I'm 40, but I don't want it to get too familiar. Because if I was in high school, I'd be buying it. I don't ever want my kids' little crushes and things to be more exciting than God's gift to me. This is my treasure.
But hey, going back to that point that you said right before that too, there's kind of this famous like cliche saying, and it says, familiarity breeds contempt. And again, per Google, this definition I have for contempt here is the feeling that a person is beneath consideration, worthless, or deserving scorn. And it also means to have disregard for something that should be taken into account. And so familiarity breeds familiarity breeds contempt means that when we become familiar with someone, we start disregarding that person or that thing as having value. And it literally says here, we're disregarding something that should be taken into account. We should always continually be taking into account our spouse, remembering all the things God's shown us about them and calling those things out. And I like what you said earlier. It's just like the word says, the scripture actually says, to know no man by the flesh. We have to know each other after the Spirit. And if we're constantly looking at each other, the closer we get, the closer we are to each other's flaws and all the problems that are within our human nature. And we see that. We see each other's patterns. We see the things that are a problem with each other. And we start judging and poking at those things and focusing on those things rather than calling out the good in each other, So my question to you would be, what would be a really, really great way for husbands and wives who are stuck in familiarity, they're not remembering where they've come from and they just are at this standstill place in their relationship where they just feel familiar with each other? What would you say to them how to get out of that?
Well, if the spark has seemed to die, or like you feel like there's only like your marriage is hanging on by a thread, or there's not much there, the thing I would say to you is don't make time for your spouse. Have time with your spouse, making time isn't an option. It's not an option to just give your spouse your crumbs. Mm-hmm. There's something that's taking up your time that is not as worthy as your time as your spouse is. Your first priority on this earth is not your family. It's not your job. It's not what business partner you have. It's your spouse. Mm-hmm. And if you put all those things before your spouse, you will become familiar with your spouse because you sleep in the same room as them or in the same bed as them. You can become roommates.
So I think what you're saying is intentionally pursuing that person, knowing whether you see it or not, that there's more to discover in them.
Yes.
And there's more to call out in them.
Yeah, and not just thinking that, again, like you said, not knowing people by the flesh, not knowing your spouse by the flesh, because you can easily begin to judge them, like you said, and look at their past and think that that's all they're capable of. But you should know that they're capable of more than that and call that person out in them. Yeah. That doesn't mean not giving tough love, because sometimes that needs to happen. But it means being patient with them and kind and praying for them and loving them the way that you've been loved when Jesus seen you in your sin. Wow, that's good. And this is the Turning Journey. This is our channel where we talk about like marriage and how to have a healthy life with your spouse. And so
like, we'll be super honest. Like, these topics that we talk about, these are definitely things that we've struggled with ourselves, you know, becoming familiar. We've been married for about 3.5 years. And, you know, I remember at the very beginning of our marriage, we had that long distance relationship. And I remember praying and praying and praying. And God started showing me all these incredible things about Clarissa, giving me, you know, words about her and images of her and just the purity of her spirit and all this. And it's so, like I said earlier, and we'll kind of close with this, it's so easy when we start going through the motions in our life together that we start, it does start breeding contempt. It does start making you, it takes away almost like that, kind of like the passion that you had at the beginning. But staying in love and pursuing someone is an intentional act. And if we are to love our wives as Christ loves the church and gave himself for her, he is constantly pursuing us. And he is so much more acquainted with our humanity than we will ever be able to be with anyone. He made us. He formed us in our mother's womb. He fashioned us together. He understands us. But yet he is the least familiar person with us because he knows his spirit that dwells within us and just the beautiful intricacy of who he made us to be. That's what he sees, right? Right? Love calls those things out. Love pursues. Love lifts each other up. And so doing that with your spouse is the number one key. Letting love be your greatest motivation in your marriage will completely dethrone familiarity, and you guys will have the most, you sparking back up that passion and that fire together it's fun. Like you feel like you're a teenager again, you know?
Date nights, and you don't just have to go out and spend money. You can do that at home.
Yeah.
It's not something that go on walks. Like I think that one thing that really helped us in the summertime is going on walks and getting sun outside. And we would make a smoothie and then just go for a morning walk before we went to work. And
wearing our pajamas.
And just even if it's just waking up to your spouse and talking to them and asking them questions about themselves and just getting to know what's on their mind or on their heart and asking them what they think about things. Like sometimes we don't even ask our spouse what they think or what their heart is on something. We kind of just continue to go along with what we think. Like we start to make decisions without them. And when you start to get to that point, that's where you know that the closeness isn't there anymore. You be intentional, like Nathan said. Like you need to sometimes put the phone down and stop taking phone calls. Stop going to these ministry meetings. Like stop putting your ministry above what you and your spouse have. When you begin to say, "Oh, it's my ministry," it's not. It's you and your spouse. When you have a ministry, it's not yours. It's you and your spouse. It's God's ministry, obviously, but you and your spouse work together on that ministry. It's not, you're never going to do it alone.
Yeah. And that ties into this because when we become familiar with each other, we have a lack of pursuing each other. And so we put other things in front of our relationship. But when we prioritize our relationship, that's kicking familiarity out the door. We're actually intentionally pursuing each other. So that's our advice on this, guys. Just a lot of practical keys, just as much as we talked about those things in the beginning. Like she also talked about going on walks together and not, dating each other like you're still 16, 17, and just keeping that as a priority in your marriage so that you don't become familiar with each other.
Find out each other's love languages and pursue that.
That's good.
Write your wife a little note. Write your husband a little note.
I'll put a picture of the book on there, but there's like a 5 love languages book.
Yes,
don't we have that?
We do.
Yeah, that's a really good book to get. So if you guys, that is such an incredible way to know how to love your spouse, the way that it connects with them, the way that they feel most valued and cherished. So
because when learning love languages, you don't love your spouse the way that you need to be loved. You love them the way they need to be loved.
That's good. We'll make a video on love languages. But
physical touch.
That is mine, I'm not going to lie. Clarissa's is definitely 2. It's words of affirmation and quality time. I think mine's physical touch and quality time. I think I like words of affirmation though too.
I think we have everybody has a little bit of all of them.
But we have.
But they're top tiers.
Yeah. Yep. All right, guys. Well, that's the video today. I feel like this is a really good one to like go back and watch again. Just keep it fresh in your mind.
You think anyone here has ever seen your head without your head? Aww, you're so cute.
Now they have. But I probably have hat hair or hat head.
Hat head.
Is that what it's called?
I'm just gonna say hat head.
I don't know what it's called. But anyways, we love you guys. Thank you for coming along. This is exciting. We're staying on track, okay? So we're staying on schedule.
Hold us accountable.
Yes. Again.
Every Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? We're going to put that up and keep ourselves accountable. Every Wednesday, expect a video from us, guys. And if this isn't up by Wednesday, I'm sorry. No, it will be.
It better be. And anyways, ask us questions, whatever you think in the chat. What do you think that is the number one thing you can be doing in your marriage to keep the spice going?
Keep the spice. In other words, keep out familiarity.
One more question. What videos on marriage do you have questions about?
Yes, always let us know that, because not only do we want more content, but we want to know what's on your hearts, you know, what you guys will actually watch. So anyways, we love you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. Love you.
Bye.